Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the comics critic over at AV Club, as well as a writer about comic things that vary in other places on the internet. It's Oliver Sava. You ready to dig deep into the world of superheroes, Oliver?
I'm so ready. I've got my shovel. We're going to be digging. It's going to get messy.
I think it's going to, honestly, I think this one's going to be a little different. Maybe. I don't know. I have kind of a different vibe going, but that's where I want to start with. We're doing another check-in about the state of the superhero union and, where we talk about everything that's happening at Marvel and DC about superhero comics. I want to start with like a 30,000-foot view. How are you feeling about the world of superheroes right now, Oliver? Are you happy with it? Sad about it? What do you got?
I'm tired.
Really?
I'm so tired. Oh my God, I'm exhausted. Just just the last year of Marvel, where it's like, here's Marvel Legacy. We're not going to do any relaunches for 2 years or whatever bullshit promises they made. And then they're like, here's quote unquote fresh start. We're going to relaunch everything now, and we're going to have legacy numbering in the corner underneath the new number one. Oh my God, it's so exhausting. And then today with our DC news, it's like every step forward is 2 steps back. Like, I'm super into the DC Inc., DC Zoom stuff.
Yeah.
But then we've got all these changes behind the scenes. Diane Nelson's gone. Geoff Johns is no longer chief creative officer. He's going to be doing his own whatevers. Oh God, it's just so exhausting. I mean, I still read a lot. Like, I still read a lot of superhero comics. I generally enjoy them, but just the industry aspect of it is so tiring.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing is like we're gonna get into this in more detail when we talk about the individual publishers, but like I actually weirdly in like the last month and a half, probably since like Free Comic Book Day or maybe since like DC Nation #0, I have actually seen a dramatic uptick in how much like superhero stuff I'm reading. At both Marvel and DC. Like I was only buying in trades at DC for a long time, and now I bought No Justice and I bought Justice League #1. I'm kind of on board with like a lot of that stuff. Marvel, I'm trying out a shocking amount of fresh start stuff because the Free Comic Book Day stuff got me pretty excited about it. And I don't know. I mean, I would say I'm generally excited, but it is interesting how much the industry stuff and all of like the endless conversation about everything Marvel and DC does like impacts your excitement about the comics themselves. I don't know if I really have that as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a reality of covering comics.
Yeah.
And being in that world every day. And God, I mean, I still love them. It's just, it can all feel like work.
Right.
And like, I just want to read a book about like Superman punching stuff, and being nice to people, but like it all feels like work.
Yeah, that is
because
true.
It is work. What am I talking about? It's my job, but I have a lot of complicated feelings about superhero comics, and we're gonna get into that.
I am kind of curious. Do you feel that way about all comics, or is it mostly just superhero comics?
Mostly superhero comics, because that's where most of the bullshit comes from.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
I mean, every company has their weaknesses, their strengths, but like the thing that gets the most attention is Marvel and DC stuff, and you're expected to cover that as a comic book journalist. Because those are the things that get clicks. You write about Batman, people are gonna go click on it. Like I have to write about the Marvel and the DC books so that I can cover the smaller things that are really exciting, to cover the Fantagraphics stuff, to cover the Koyama stuff, to cover the why can't I think of any small publishers right now?
First Second.
No Brow, right? Yeah, First Second. I mean, Retrofit Big Planet. That's what I was trying to think of off the top of my head. I'm like, what's Box's company? No, like there's so much exciting comic book stuff, but at the same time,
you gotta balance it out.
And it's like I'm expected to cover those big things because that's what will get the clicks, which also ends up being a thing of me being frustrated with like the journalism industry as much as I am with the comic book industry.
Yeah. And also the humanity industry, because that's all they care about. I mean, it is interesting though, because it's like there is a massive difference there, and obviously like I am contributing to that because I'm having you to come on and talk about superheroes once again. But who cares?
But at the same time, it's like I love doing this every year. Like it's our time to talk about things we like and then bitch about the things we do not like. But like it does also feel like this year like fandom got even more toxic.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's just like, oh God.
Yeah.
Things are just everything. I mean, welcome to 2018 or whatever. Like things are not good.
Yeah. The fascinating thing about it is like, so normally when we do this, it always ends up being where we're going to talk about new relaunches for both publishers, or at least one of the publishers. And I mean, you can kind of make the argument that neither of them are. They're doing like partial line relaunches, because like DC's got New Justice and they have like Vertigo relaunching and they have all this other stuff. And Marvel has like Fresh Start, which you could say is a relaunch, but you could also say, well, they have legacy numbering on them. The double numbering thing is not as big of a deal as I thought it would be, but I still think it's kind of stupid. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen that. They did that in the early 2000s or whatever, too,
Right.
though. So, like, I'm kind of used to there being two numbers on certain books. But it's just more of the runaround that they're giving readers and retailers. I was in the shop like a couple weeks ago, and somebody was picking up a bunch of Captain America issues, like recent Captain America issues, like a huge amount of them. And I think there were some issues missing, and like he was like, I need a Captain America #3 or whatever. And it's like, well, which one? Because there've been like 5 of them in the last 2 years or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, and I even made a joke. I was like, don't you love how Marvel's making it so easy for you to find exactly what you need?
Oh, it's
like,
amazing.
No shit, people go and
Buy
subscribe
trades.
to Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
And not even buy trades, please. Ugh, Marvel
know.
trades, they're the worst.
Yeah.
They are the worst.
I bought exactly one Marvel trade in like the last 5 years, and it was the Kate Bishop Hawkeye series, because I don't know, I just wanted it, and I was like, I'm gonna get it. But let's get into specifics. I want to talk about each individual, each publisher individually. But because of today's news, I want to start with DC, and specifically the big Geoff Johns news. For listeners that don't know, Johns has departed as the chief creative officer and president of DC Entertainment to focus on creative endeavors, with Jim Lee taking over his role as CCO. So what is your hot Geoff Johns take? Do you think this will have a substantial impact, or is this just like moving deck chairs around?
I mean, it feels very deck chairsy just because this comes so hot on the heels of Diane Nelson leaving as president of DC Entertainment. But at the same time, like, I don't know just how valuable Johns was in the chief creative officer position. It's like one of those weird positions. I don't really understand what they do. I think is that Quesada at Marvel?
I forgot what his title is.
I think it is, but I'm not positive. It's just kind of this like ambiguous, I deal with comics, TV, film, and juggle it all around. But I mean, I guess this means Johns will be writing more comics, which I guess is good, ?
Yeah.
I mean, I like Doomsday Clock. I am an issue behind. I think it is fine. But like, I'm also a person that is totally burnt out on anything Watchmen related.
Right.
And Doomsday Clock feels like it could so easily have been a story that didn't involve Watchmen at all, or like it could have just been a response to Watchmen without needing to use any of the characters, which I think would have been so much more interesting. But yeah, I have a hard time getting excited for pretty much any of the changes that happened today, because Jim Lee as chief creative officer really is not the most exciting thing to me. Like, Jim Lee had a really huge role in the New 52, which was a goddamn disaster. So like, I just don't know if that's going to be a positive or a negative. Like, there are so many other things that I'm far more interested at DC in the coming months
Right.
or in the next year or so. Ink and Zoom, which I think is the smartest decision that they've made in a very long time, like hitting that Raina Telgemeier market. Like they want to make that Scholastic money, so they're putting out YA middle grade books with creators that are not on big DC books. There's so many women. I think it's predominantly women writing these books. Most of them are coming from outside of comics, which does make me a little wary, just because I don't know how well they know the medium. Writing for comics, it's different than writing a novel. I just don't want there to be like a ton of narration. I want people to trust their artist. I mean, I think the best example of this in the past couple of years, I think, is the current Runaways.
Yeah.
With Rainbow Rowell, who has really given Chris Anka a lot of control over the pacing of the story, how scenes are laid out. If he wants to stretch out a scene, she'll let him do it. If he wants to cut it short, she'll make the adjustments. But at the same time, Ta-Nahisi Coates, Black Panther, it just took him a while, but eventually he really hit a stride. And like the new Black Panther first issue was awesome. It was super duper awesome. So like I have faith. DC's Black Label sounds like it could be really, really good. I'm really excited for that Kelly Sue DeConnick, Phil Jimenez, Amazon's book. What else is in there? That's the Frank Miller Superman.
Yeah,
with John Romita Jr.
That's Superman Year One, and then there's also the Rucka book, the Diana's Daughter, the Wonder Woman one.
Oh yeah, which doesn't have an artist attached to it.
No,
right?
it doesn't. I don't think it has basically anything besides like a premise and the name.
Just Diana's Daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I love John Romita Jr. He's like he's just one of those artists that over time I gained like a deeper and deeper appreciation. I think when it really clicked for me, his art was his run with on Captain America with Rick Remender.
Oh yeah,
where it was totally just like 70s Kirby madness. It just made me appreciate just how well he draws power, energy. He draws swag really well. Like his characters are always like strutting. So, I'm down, but also, like the talking about John Romita Jr. makes you think about the New Age of Heroes books.
Less said about them, the better.
Yeah. Let's just stop and not keep talking. No, I like that's just a totally botched new initiative that totally had this artist-driven. Honestly, it feels like a lie because all those books have like a different artist after 3 issues,
or like 1 issue, or like the first issue.
If they even get 1 issue, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like 2 of those books had, I think, multiple artists on the very first issues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that New Age of Heroes thing is like exactly the fear of Jim Lee being CCO, because that really feels like a Jim Lee DiDio joint, like a kind of their style of thing. And like going back to Johns, I don't know what the impact's gonna be. It's gonna be hard to say, just because like the difference between Marvel Comics and DC Entertainment is Marvel Comics has a separation from Marvel Films. Like they don't touch that. DC Entertainment, Geoff Johns was doing all kinds of stuff for the movies and TV shows, and so his role was so bifurcated that I honestly don't know if he was really doing anything for maybe since the beginning of Rebirth with like comics. Like, what was he doing besides Doomsday Clock? Maybe nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that they just let him kind of set a tone for Rebirth, and make certain decisions, but like he didn't write any of those books. He just kind of just set a stage for people to work and do their own thing on top of. But like, I mean, I wasn't super hot on like Johns' books in the New 52 either. It's been kind of a while. What was my favorite thing that he wrote in the last 5 years is probably his Superman run with John Romita Jr. So like, but that was Geoff Johns at his best, doing like inspirational, fun stuff, and which is why it's like such a bummer to see that his imprint is called The Killing Zone. It's like, what really? Like I was like working at my desk. I'm like, what would be a better word? Like, what could be a better name for an imprint than that? Like
literally anything.
anything, but like I was just trying to think of like what could potentially like instead of giving this image in your head of just like dead bodies everywhere, like tap into the thing that Geoff Johns does really well, which is like write optimistic, inspiring, just like feel good stuff but at the same time, like Geoff Johns also has a reputation for like ripping the arms off of characters. So
yeah, but to a degree he doesn't. Like, I mean, like the Flash stuff, I don't think his Flash stuff wasn't crazy violent. Teen Titans, like one of the most famous storylines was involving like the future Teen Titans coming back or whatever that storyline was. But there's like a lot of really not as dark stuff. His Stars and Stripe series, I don't know if you ever actually read that. Like, that was one of the first things he did at DC, was like wonderful and was also like an all ages book by all accounts. But I don't know. I mean, the Killing Zone thing was really fascinating because the mission statement for for listeners that don't know, this is his imprint that's going to be a pop-up imprint at DC where he curates and writes part of the line, and the whole thing is about like bringing new characters and characters that are dormant and haven't been used in a while back to DC. And like that fits Johns's MO, because he's like the old school, like kind of Silver Age vibe type of guy. He's JSA, he's like the Flash, but in classic ways. Hawkman, exactly.
Right, yeah.
I mean, and so like having it called the Killing Zone is so incongruous. Like, why wouldn't it be like DC Silver or something like that? I feel like that would make sense. But instead, it's the Killing Zone, which seems like the antithesis of what he's going for. But he does rip arms off.
And when I saw that the press release or whatever, I was really confused because I was like, are they launching a Shazam book as part of an imprint called The Killing Zone? Which I don't think Shazam is part of it. Shazam is separate. I think it's just a DC Universe book. But you know what? You really shouldn't. That shouldn't be the reaction you have after reading that news either. Like, I was like just kind of confused.
Yeah, it needed a clarifier immediately.
3 Jokers sounds like trash. I'm so over the Joker. Oh God, 3 of them. Yay! I hope one of them is the Jared Leto Joker.
Yeah.
Right, 1 Joker for each movie that he has in development.
That actually, I think they would need 1 more movie in development. Maybe they don't. I don't know. They got the Jared Leto one, and then they got the Martin Scorsese one. I love that Martin Scorsese, for some reason, is like, you know what? I'm gonna do a Joker movie. Why? It's so weird.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Like right now, DC has DC doesn't have a lot of coals in the fire. It has like, it basically lit the Amazon on fire, and it's just a giant. There's just smoke.
Theoretical
rising,
movies everywhere.
Yeah.
It's amazing. All right, so I want we're talking about Zoom and Ink and like the books that you really like. That's what you're excited about. What are you liking right now? What's working for you, comic wise?
I mean, I was a big metal person. I really really enjoyed Dark Knight's metal. So like I'm totally in the tank for the upcoming or the currently unfolding New Justice stuff. I mean, getting Jim Chung for
he was so good
Justice
in the first
League
issue.
is such a get. And pairing Mark Morales and Tomo Mori, I don't quite know how to pronounce his first name, but like that book looked gorgeous. And like Jorge Jimenez is DC's secret weapon. Like, he deserves to have a gigantic book. He draws awesome superheroes. It's like he's kind of like, to me, he's like a mix of like Olivier Coipel and Russell Dauterman. And like, I just love his art. It looks so good. He's gonna be such a good fit for that book. I'm really interested in Justice League Odyssey because, again, another person whose name I cannot pronounce, Stepan
Sejic, yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
Like, I think his art works really, really well with DC characters. Like, his Aquaman run was just really gorgeous, and it's going to be really fun to see him do like this cosmic book with. It'll be really nice to have a good cyborg. Like, Priest wrote a really fascinating cyborg in his Justice League arc. Did you read that by chance?
No, not yet.
So yeah, the Priest Woods Justice League was super fascinating. It's not quite as consistent as Deathstroke, but like there's so many big ideas. Honestly, it should have gone for like 3 years. But he does really, really fascinating stuff with Cyborg that I hope that they pick up on in Justice League Odyssey. Like, that's just a really cool team. I'm like, Darkseid is like their leader or something. I don't even know, but It's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. A little less excited for like Justice League Dark,
I'm in
which
on it because it has like tangential connection to Shadow Pact, which was a book that I actually enjoyed
yeah.
quite a bit. But I like that side of the universe. I'm generally into the New Justice stuff. The funny thing is I picked up No Justice and generally enjoyed that, and then really enjoyed Justice League One. But the whole thing, I actually hadn't read Metal yet, and I'm reading it right now. And the only reason why I decided to pick that up is because like I love Source Wall stuff and all the insanity that involves that, and I actually appreciate that like Snyder seems to be embracing like the crazy side of DC a bit, which
Metal is ridiculous. Batmanium. Batmanium. That book
I'm
was
not there
so
yet.
stupid in the best way. It's like the second issue.
The first issue has Voltron Justice League in it, which is
Yeah, right.
wild.
It's like my favorite Snyder is definitely like super heavy Snyder, the Jim Gordon as Mecha Batman arc.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really like when Snyder goes totally balls to the wall blockbuster. And that's totally what I feel from Metal, from his Justice League stuff. I mean, No Justice was basically just like a video game. Like
Right.
it had total video game plotting. Like it goes by, it's like super rushed. But you know what? Like I didn't really care. It's a weekly. Get it out of the way. Pair up all these characters and these fun different combinations. Yeah, but like I'm far less optimistic about like the new Titans run and the new Teen Titans. I mean, Titans might be okay. Like Dan Abnett is like he is one of those writers where it depends so much on who his artist is. Like Aquaman got so much better when it had an artist change and an editor change, and they like put it all in Atlantis. So like that book is like an urban fantasy in Atlantis. Really fun right now. It was awful for 24 issues though. Like the first the first year of Rebirth Aquaman is not good at all. So it'll be interesting. Brandon Peterson, another really hit or miss person, depending on the colorist.
Yeah.
But God, that Teen Titans preview that was in the back of Justice League was like hot garbage. I couldn't believe it. I was like, yay. From the writer of the new 52 Suicide Squad. That's gonna get me real excited.
Is Adam Glass like a TV guy? Is that his background?
Yeah, I think he comes from Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps?
Yeah. I've never really been that impressed by his stuff, but Brandon Peterson's an interesting one because he's like, his stuff feels so inorganic to me, and it's like that's why I think you're saying that the coloring matters so much because if it has the right weighting to it, it feels a lot more natural. But that seems to not happen very often. I really liked the DC Nation number 0 one shot that was a quarter, just because it actually got me. I was of course going to pick it up for a quarter, and it got me excited for like it got me back buying the trades for Tom King's run on Batman, and it got me to pick up No Justice. But it definitely like okay, so I have to ask you about Bendis, our boy Bendis. What's your take? We're about 3 issues of story in on his Superman stuff. How are you feeling right now?
So I thought his story in Action Comics 1000 was awful and like a blight on that book. That book was awesome, and then you get to the end, and it's like it ends with like a wet fart. It's so bad. It is so bad. But then I thought his DC Nation story was great. Like that was the
Daily Planet story, right?
That was the Daily Planet, which I think is where so much of the strength of that run is going to come from. I think Bendis writes a fantastic Perry White, which is like, I didn't know Perry White was going to be such a big selling point to me. I am already kind of tired of this mystery involving Lois and John.
I feel like I'd like that a lot more if it weren't for that, because it's just like he constantly references it.
And it's like, I mean, I get it if you're trying to do like go back to basics for the start of your run and then like phase in these different elements of the mythos. But, you know, that's kind of a frustration that I had with Charles Soule's Daredevil run at the very beginning, where you're coming hot off of Wade, who had done this incredible story where Matt Murdock's identity is out. He's like that creates all these really interesting problems for him. And then you start this new run. The genie's back in the bottle. You have no explanation. And like, I think it was like 18 issues or so, you do get an explanation for it. But it's like, I have a really strong attachment to the status quo that we just left behind.
Right.
So when you erase it and you don't explain it to me, I'm not invested in that mystery in any way.
Yeah.
I'm pissed off. And I don't want to keep reading. And that's like it's one of the issues with serialized storytelling or whatever. Like I like to think that I have a certain amount of that I give people a certain amount of leeway, but at the same time, like I get emotional about stuff too. And like if you're winding back on things that are evolving a character just so that you can go back to a status quo that is closer to the Netflix show or whatever, like that just ends up feeling really uninspired to me.
Right. Yeah. And unearned, more importantly, because it makes the story not work. But I mean, I think that's the hard part is like this Tomasi and Gleason stuff made people, and Super Sons and everything like that, made people really care about the family. And it's funny because so far in everything Bendis has written, it's like all the Daily Planet stuff, almost every scene is just like, oh, like the latest issue, Man of Steel, you had that newer, the lifestyle reporter who was like, we have the big story here. What's going on with Lois Lane? And it's just like the fact that they're just kind of hanging over our head, and it'll probably be resolved in the 6-issue miniseries, but it's like such a weird thing, and I feel like it's actually degrading my interest in the book. But
yeah, and I mean, I'm going to read the whole thing. I am enjoying it. And I mean, those artists are incredible. Although I really hope Adam Hughes colors himself. I'm getting nervous because I just realized, because it's like this issue is right. This week is Ryan Sook. I think next week might be Kevin Maguire. And then Adam Hughes, I do not want to see him colored by Alex Sinclair. That's going to make me cry. I'm going to be mad.
The thing I really want is like the fact that they said that they're going to have different artists draw each one. And then like even beyond that, there's different artists within each issue. The whole thing makes me, it kind of makes it all feel a little undercooked to me. And that's kind of bothersome because like I love Doc Shaner. And then like you get an issue with it's like partially Doc Shaner and then partially Jason Fabok and then partially Steve Rude. And it's like, it's really weird. They're not really super congruous.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that Shaner and Rude are pretty close. They at least have a sort of like an old school spirit.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I'm never going to complain when Steve Rude's on a book. I will complain about who's coloring him. But, like his art's just so nice. But it also ends up feeling like if you're going to have a different artist for every issue, I want that writer to think about the artist that he's working with, write a story that is geared to that artist's strengths.
Right.
So, and Bendis probably did when he thought he was working with Shaner, but then Shaner can only do half an issue. Right. So, like, suddenly that script has to be just, it's not getting really redone. It's just going to a different artist now. So, like, Bendis he probably didn't know about that when he wrote it a year ago or whatever. Like, I don't know when he started working on these Superman books, but I'm sure it wasn't a year ago.
No,
but,
definitely
like, not. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about artist stuff and like, surprise, a weekly book doesn't have consistent artwork. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm like really kind of down on Bendis's Superman stuff already, and it's just like it just kind of like the Rogol Zaar stuff doesn't feel like it feels like a story I've read before. I like the Daily Planet stuff, but at the same time, like the new reporter, they're really emphasizing her while simultaneously like emphasizing the Lois and John like the disappearance, and it's just it all just feels kind of undercooked so far. But at the same time, it is early, so I'm going to give it time, but I'm not super feeling it so far. But
I mean, I'm laughing because that's the first time I've heard Rogol Zaar said out loud, and it sounds like a fancy pasta dish or something.
Would you like to try a nice Rogol Zaar? It comes with yeah, I can totally see that. Isn't it like the name of some? It's like the name of an editor or something like that, reversed. I'm trying to remember what it was. There's no way it's reversed, but I remember it being something like he took it from somebody he knows.
Yeah.
Obviously, I hope he doesn't actually have a friend
Sure.
named Rogelzar. But okay, so let's do some quick hit ones before we move off DC. Thoughts on Young Animal ending?
Bummed. Super bummed.
Yeah,
Really. I mean, at the same time, it's good when stories end.
yeah,
Like, I think 18 issues is a really great run for a book. Like, New Superman is ending this week, and a great book, 24 issues. Marvel would have canceled it after 6. So, like, good for you, DC. You kept that book going. You were able to to let a creator build something and finish it. And that's
right.
how I feel about Young Animal too. Like, these books weren't setting the world on fire. I don't think they were ever going to.
Right.
But
I like that they took the chance.
exactly, they took the chance. They committed to it for 2 years. But I have seen some people be like, it probably wasn't the best idea to like end all the books, do this crossover, and then come back to it. Like, the season model works to a point, but like it is a way of really like cutting a book's momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what happened with Young Animal. But at the same time, it's like we got 18 issues of Shade the Changing Girl. That book was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think, like an all-female creative team too. Andy Parks, I think, was the only person that wasn't a woman. He just did inks every so often.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was just a fascinating, weird, different book that was like always a delight to read every month, even though sometimes I didn't know what the hell was going on, but in a way that I enjoyed. And I felt like there was always craft. I felt like there was always decisions being made there. There were choices in that book. And that's such a thing that I think about now. Like, as a reviewer, a lot of the time I feel like I am imagining choices that they're making.
Right.
But you know what? It's the idea that you did something that makes me make that connection in my head, even if it's not intentional.
Mm-hmm.
A book like, say, Black Bolt, Christian Ward, like, you felt like he was making choices in that book all the time. If it was layout or coloring or whatever, like, there was intentionality there all the time. And I really got that a lot from the Young Animal books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kate Carson, that book was absolutely insane, but like, just psychedelic awesomeness. And then like Mother Panic, we got that book was a lot more inconsistent for me, but like, those John Paul Leon issues are killer.
Mm-hmm.
They're so good. I don't know if you read those issues, but if you haven't, just read those 3 and you'll be fine.
I do think that what you're saying is like you can feel the difference between like a Young Animal book, because it really is reflective of a perspective, versus like there's sometimes you read a superhero book where it just kind of feels like it's being completed by assembly line effectively. And like that's the nice thing about Young Animal. But that's what I really like about the imprint method that they're kind of going with, is like, if you have these kind of finite, like these pop-up imprints where it's like, let's say that you're promised at least like 18 issues or something like that, or like, let's say, 18 issues, and you can go for as long as that works, or if it's really successful, you can keep going longer or something like that. But I do think, personally, as far as the imprint, some people are like, how many imprints are they going to have? I do as many imprints as you can sustain.
I'm the exact same mindset.
Yeah.
Make it all imprints.
Yeah.
I want there to be, you can have one line of 20 books or whatever that are the DC universe, and then just have people doing their version of these characters.
Right.
Like, that is so much more interesting to me than having 5 Batman books that are all set in the same continuity, that all have to tie in with each other. Like, I want to see interpretations more than I want to see continuations.
Mm-hmm. I actually think, this is kind of a dramatic thing to say about something that we don't really have any information on quite yet, but I feel like the imprint method is quite possibly like the future of superhero comics, in the sense that it's like, it allows you to take risks and take chances while still like kind of serving like your main audience, and like telling a lot of interesting stories that serve, like the nice thing about DC Ink and DC Zoom is they're serving the book market. Or the nice thing about Black Label is it's serving the people who really love prestige comics that have like big names on it, telling out of continuity stories, which for a long time was like the thing that DC hung their hat on. I mean, like, you look at their book market sellers, and those are always like those books like Watchmen, or those books like The Killing Joke or whatever, that are like a little weird and a little outside the box, but like allowed people to tell like character defining stories that don't have to fit into the next crisis, you know?
Yep. Kingdom Come.
Yeah, Kingdom Come, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like all these, like I think that all these, like the future of comics is there's just so many people, so many different audiences you're trying to please, and so if you make a bunch of different small imprints that kind of fit these different niches, you're going to see a lot more success, and like maybe bring even new readers into it, and I think it's really exciting.
Agreed.
Especially the Killing Zone. So okay, one other imprint, Vertigo. What do you think of the announcement about the return? They have 7 books in the Sandman universe. Are you into it? Out on it? Eh.
I'm definitely going to give it a try. But there was a feeling of just kind of like, okay, when it was announced. I do think that there are some interesting creative teams, but like I feel like I've gotten burned by Vertigo relaunches so much
Sure.
over the last couple of years that it's just kind of hard for me to get really excited, even though like it wasn't a relaunch, but like the 2 most recent Vertigo books, Motherlands and Deathbed, are pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't like really grab me the way that reading like Why the Last Man grabbed me when I was in high school. But maybe it's different because I'm not in high school anymore and I've read a lot of comics.
Yeah.
It's just it gets harder and harder, and I feel that way about Image Expo when that happens too. Like there's usually 1 or 2 books that I'm really, really excited for, and then there's a lot of stuff that I'm just kind of like, okay, we'll see how it is when it comes out, and maybe I'll really dig it. Every so often there's like a big surprise, but yeah, I think that there's going to be some. I want there to be some interesting books in there. Like I'm always down for Ramon Villalobos and Tamara together.
Yeah.
So like I'll definitely be checking that out. I mean, I'll give everything. I'll give everything a read for the first issue, just because it is this big initiative, and that's kind of the benefit of doing these kinds of relaunches, these initiatives, because it does kind of get that excitement up, and it compels me to read books that I might not have read if they just came out randomly that month.
Mm-hmm.
But the negative side of that is that you can get really burnt out on those too.
Right. I do think it's really interesting. Like you don't really like, you know, it's not that you don't like the idea of novelists writing comics, but the fact that like sometimes they get dropped in and like they may not know what they're doing exactly. The fact that this has like a person who's like a writer, like a kind of a technology writer, and then and slash video game writer, and then there's also like the dude from 9 Inch Nails, like the designer guy, like writing a comic.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's really interesting. It's like they're not even like kind of those types of writers by trade, and they're really outside the box voices. Oh, I actually think that, was it High Level is the one that Rob Sheridan's writing? Like I think that's one of the more interesting books of the line. And I do appreciate that they all seem like they have really nice design sense to the covers. Like they're really well thought out and they're pretty looking. But I don't know. I think Vertigo's big problem is the fact that when Why the Last Man was coming out, there wasn't anything else that was releasing comics like that. And and now there's just, I mean, I can get on the internet and find a webcomic that probably is like, I don't know, I could just read John Allison's stuff and I'd be extremely happy about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's just,
And I mean, like there's Image, I feel like Aftershock is trying to get into like that similar area, and then there's Black Mask, there's Vault, there's all these kind of like third string, I want to say, like that are trying to get that feel, but they don't really grab me in the same way.
Yeah.
But that's just because there's so much volume, like, and honestly, like the most interesting stuff I feel doesn't really come out in monthlies.
Right.
Like I feel like Fantagraphics, Drawn and Quarterly, like these are places that put out really awesome, fresh stuff. Koyama, I mean, I love Koyama. They do such like fascinating books, and they come out. There's a fall catalog and there's a spring catalog. 6 books each time. Like it's a totally manageable number of books. And you can just sit down with a bunch of these. I love like taking those books to the beach because they're always like, but they're pretty sturdy, and like they're just like kind of off kilter beach reads. But I really enjoy doing that. Like, so we'll see. We'll see how the new Vertigo goes. And I guess we didn't even talk about any of the Sandman stuff. But I mean, that's kind of another one too, where I feel so much like Sandman is a relic of my past.
Yeah.
And that like I don't know if I'll ever really be super attached to it. But I also did like this really long back issues Sandman stuff. So like I spent so much time writing about it. Watchmen's the same way, where I'm just like still burnt out 5 years later.
I will say that they were very smart in the sense that they had Bilquis Evely do
yeah.
Like that's such a perfect fit. I think she's incredible.
That's absolutely the number one most exciting thing about that entire thing is honestly the art. The art teams, because they also have the Fumara brothers on there.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Domo Stanton, who I don't know very much of his work, and he did like a Night Mask and Starbrand book at Marvel that lasted like 4 issues or something.
It was like an all ages book, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Man, that like came.
So
and
it was like super doomed from the start, but yeah, we'll see how the Sandman stuff goes. But I mean, I'm not really clamoring for it in any way.
This is my admission. I've admitted it multiple times in the podcast, but I've never read Sandman, so not the target market am I. Yo, everybody. Just want to take a second for a quick word from our friends at Comixology Originals. They're launching a line of exclusive original comics with 4 new titles available for free for members of Amazon Prime, Kindle Unlimited, or Comixology Unlimited. They include Savage Game, a graphic novel from the mind of NFL player Ryan Khalil, the return of Richard Starking's Elephant Man, the action-packed Ask for Mercy, and Super Freaks, a perfectly bingeable superhero mystery that has all 5 issues available right now. All can be found on the previously mentioned services, a la carte on Kindle and Comixology, as well as a print version of Savage Game through Amazon.com. Get on these exciting comics today and look for another wave of titles to be announced this summer. And now, back to the show. All right, let's move on to Marvel, though. They're about a month into their Fresh Start initiative, which, near as I can tell, is, I don't know, maybe like the first thing that kind of comes from CB as the editor-in-chief. I don't know. It's probably in the works, but it feels like it has some CB fingerprints on it. How are you feeling about Marvel and its Fresh Start so far? I like how you're immediately laughing because I'm talking about CB Cebulski.
I'm talking about CB. It's just, God. The whole Kyoshida stuff is just such a mess. And like it's such a bad leg to start your run as editor-in-chief on.
And
like,
it looms over
the worst
everything.
possible. Looms over everything. It's like it's hard to take Marvel seriously, like in any way. But let's talk about the books.
Yeah.
Let's not those are what we want to say, extra textuals. No.
Marvel is basically half extra textuals at this point.
Yeah, right. Nick Spencer. Yeah. What has debuted? So Avengers, pretty meh, honestly. I'm not feeling it, although I trust Jason Aaron's going to build something interesting there. But those first couple issues, not really all that exciting. Prehistoric Avengers, I could give or take, whatever.
I will say
Black Panther.
Wait, really quick. I just want to say about the Avengers. I will say that the thing I appreciate about it is it does feel like a throwback, and it does have the Celestials, and I am man enough to admit the fact that just having the presence of the Celestials is enough for me to be interested in it. I will say that it's not like, it doesn't feel like a Jason Aaron book yet, and and like that's. But he is also a builder, and I think that he might get there. But like through 2 issues, I'd say I enjoy it, but I don't love it. Anyways,
yeah, I'm gonna feel your eyes roll through the phone. But if you love Celestials, you gotta get on Al Ewing's Royals.
What you're
recommending? Book.
What you're recommending an Al Ewing book? I can't believe it.
I mean, that book was it had some really, really rocky art for like the first 4 issues, but then they settle into like a solid art team. It becomes just like this like really fun cosmic superhero book that the last arc has Javier Rodriguez.
Oh my God. I'm in.
Alvaro Lopez and Jordi Belair doing like super huge cosmic. They're called the progenitors, and they are like the people that like like the people that created the Kree, kind of, and they're just these like gigantic celestial type things, and like that's Al Ewing does such good work with those big cosmic concepts. Like that's the thing. If you had read his Ultimates run, you would feel underwhelmed by what Jason Aaron is doing with the Celestials in Avengers, because it feels just kind of shallow to me, and it feels too much like what just happened in No Justice, which I know these things are not copying each other, they're just using the same tropes that have happened over and over, but like the two of them coming out at the exact same time, having like the same story, it just like reminds me that like superhero comics are super stale.
I also think Avengers #1 technically came out before No Justice did. It
came out 1 week. It came out 1 week before it.
Yeah.
It came out the first week of May, and No Justice was the second week. So it's like, cool. Yay.
Yeah. Well, we got our taste of 4 very large beings standing over the earth. We got a whole lot of that. So you were getting to Ta-Nahisi Coates and Daniel Acuna's Black. I love that first issue, and I have to admit, I dropped his first volume extremely fast of Black Panther, because it wasn't
so boring.
It was really boring, and I hate saying that, like, it's such a petty complaint, but it's like, it was a really boring comic, and it was like, I don't think there was an action scene in any of the first 2 issues that I read, and I was just like, what is this comic?
There were action scenes, they were boring.
Okay,
that's the thing.
I just blacked them out.
They're so boring. Like the big climactic action scene of that 12-issue arc was just a total thud. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, the way I always like talk to people about that in person, and I always kind of go to the same line of like, do you like what we're doing right now? Like sitting around a table and talking. Don't you wish you could buy 12 issues of that for $4 a pop? Like that's what Black Panther that first year felt like. It was just characters sitting at tables talking about things. Yeah. Which, like that could be interesting. Maybe
it's a lot of Bendis' career at Marvel.
Yeah, but Bendis is better at like putting some action in there, and like look, I think about Priest a lot, and Priest loves having these really dense conversations. But like the new issue of Deathstroke had a bunch of dense conversations, but it also had Batman and Deathstroke in a flying car chasing like a 80-year-old former supervillain or something. Like it had these really crazy big set pieces that make it exciting, and Coates does get there. Like his second year of Black Panther was leagues and leagues better than the first. And there's actually one issue, I think it's like 169, I want to say, that is almost an entirely silent issue. It's just one big fight scene. That's with awesome. With one of the Dora Milaje characters. Mm-hmm. And it is awesome. I was reading it. It's a Leonard Kirk drawn issue, who I really like. Leonard Kirk.
Super underrated.
Yeah, super underrated. He just totally killed that issue. I finished it. I was like, maybe I should write about this. I didn't, but I'll get to it at some point. I'm really bummed though, because Black Panther, I think the second issue comes out on time, but the third issue got delayed a month. Yeah. So, but at the same time, it's like Acuna's artwork was so good in that first issue. I'm like, I'll live with it. Like I'm okay with losing a month or whatever. There's enough superhero comics that I'll be fine. But I'm really crossing my fingers that Russell Dutterman's going to be the fill-in artist on that book. If they can't get like Olivier Coipel for it, like I want Russell Dutterman on there. Which they definitely
will not, because those Netflix dollars speak big.
Yeah, but he's only on Magic Order for 6 issues. Like that's a miniseries. I'm sure most of it's done, if not completely done.
Yeah.
So
he's also not the fastest.
No, right? But neither is Daniel Acuna. So,
yeah, that's true.
Like, I also just think it's kind of a travesty that he's never drawn a Black Panther comic, because
he'd be perfect for it.
I feel like he'd be so perfect for it. But if that can't happen, I want Russell and Matt Wilson killing that stuff. Like they would just seeing them do like Cosmic Wakanda, designing all these cool characters. Like they also draw like really sexy superheroes, but not in like any sort of like exploitative way. Yeah.
I'm convinced. I have absolutely no knowledge of this, but I'm convinced Russell Dutterman's drawing X-Classified.
I would also, when you were saying I'm convinced, I was like X-Men. I feel like he's going to be doing a big X-Men book.
Yeah.
But who's gonna write that? I mean,
Jonathan Hickman. No, I'm not even kidding. I feel like it's gonna happen.
Oh God,
I feel like
I'd be
there's a
shocked if Hickman went back to Marvel.
I feel like he's gonna go to one or the other, and I feel like it's gonna go back to Marvel. But we'll see. I could be insane. I mean, I heard like rumors. You know how it forms. Like it's like there's always a rumor that somebody's gonna be going back to Marvel or DC. Granted, he just made like Amazon dollars off of East of West and Transhuman, so he doesn't really need that anymore. But at the same time, like I feel like there's a move coming from Hickman, and I feel like Hickman also has like as much leverage as any writer in comics right now.
Yeah.
And like Marvel is just desperate enough that they could throw like the house at him. And I don't know that I feel like there's a reason why X Classified is as stupidly or like nothing as it is.
That entire idea is extremely infuriating to me. Like it's not frustrating, it is infuriating when I see it. When I see that there are now 2 months of a classified book solicited, like I am mad for retailers. Like you are asking them to put their dollars behind a book that they know nothing about. And like, it's not like the X-Men line is amazing right now.
No.
There's X-Men Red. Like Tom Taylor is the saving grace of the X-Men line because X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold are trash. They are really bad. Like they're unreadable.
I actually dropped astonishing 11 issues into a Charles Soule's 12-issue run, which is like I never do that. But
11 issues.
I was like, I can't do it. I was looking. I picked it up and I put it back down this week, and I felt really bad about it. But I was like, no, I just can't do it to myself.
There's like one. I really like that ACO issue, and that was
the 12th issue. That's one I didn't get.
No, that was the 10th issue, I think.
He also did the 12th issue.
No,
I think so.
No. Gerardo Sandoval did the 12th issue.
Oh, did he? Okay.
So it's like fake Joe Madureira did the 12th issue.
Wow, you did a really good job selling me there. I want to go.
No, don't read it. I'm not telling you to. I'm not going. It. No, like, I was kidding. You made the right decision. It wasn't very good.
It was just funny that I did 11 out of 12. I never do that. I was like, oh come on, it's like that weird superhero guilt, the completionist guilt. But I do want to say about Coates and Acuña's Black Panther. The thing that's interesting about that book is because I haven't been reading it. I don't know if anything led into this, but it's interesting.
No.
But it's interesting because it kind of feels like this should be like a maxi series, like an out of continuity story that they can turn into a graphic novel because it's so fascinating and it seemingly has nothing to do with anything. And I love it, but I'm just like, I don't know this easily. I don't know why Marvel doesn't do those like did you ever read Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee's Inhumans?
Yeah.
Like it was amazing, and like there's like nothing else like it where they do these 12-issue miniseries that turn into a fantastic trade at the end. But I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like that, but I just want to list off some of the books I'm really liking because I'm liking a lot of this stuff. Like I loved Al Ewing and Joe Bennett's Immortal Hulk. Like that was fantastic.
It was so good. And like speaking of underrated, Joe Bennett,
really good,
who has been in the industry for like 20 years. Like he is just one of those people that has the chops. He's not a stylist. He's not going to necessarily like wow you with his composition or his layouts, but like he gets the job done. His
storyteller.
Issues of Deathstroke are absolutely like they are so good. He's such a good fit for Priest, but man, those 2 double-page spreads back to back.
Yeah,
I was like, no. Like, you do not do this, like, and make it this good. Ugh. Yeah. Smiling Hulk, too, like, scary shit. It was he did such a good job, like, the two of them. And I think Roy Jose, who, man, he inked him on, like, Birds of Prey or something. Like, I don't even know how I know this information. Like, that is a weird encyclopedic randomness. But, like, yeah, that book looked really good. And just, you can tell that Ewing is really, really passionate about this book and has been wanting to tell this story for a really long time.
Did you read the write-up in the back of the first issue?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
oh, man.
It was great.
And I don't always read those write-ups in the back, but I was like, you know what? If they gave him a page to write about this, like, I should read it.
Yeah.
And that got me so excited. Just the idea of being really excited for unpredictability in a Hulk story, where so much of Hulk stories are just Hulk smash or whatever. or the fear of Hulk smashing, and
Right.
now it's like I don't know what's going to happen when Hulk comes out.
Yeah.
Like but I know it's going to be cool. It also gave me really serious Bruce Jones Hulk vibes,
Yeah.
which is a run that goes totally wildly off the rails, but for like a year and a half is just amazing. Those again, John Romita Jr. and then Stuart Immonen, like yeah, that was the good shit. And that's formative comics for me too. Like that's right when I was getting into comics. So I have a really soft spot for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that he it feels like the Hulk has a history of having a lot of different versions of the Hulk. Like I grew up on Peter David Hulk stuff, and like he had like the Banner Hulk, the smart one that actually like could like wear clothing and be an individual.
Yeah.
And like I really love that stuff, but it feels like this is kind of like a new breed of Hulk, like that Ewing is doing, and it makes sense because he was dead or whatever. And like I love the fact that we were talking about perspective and Young Animal earlier. It's like the thing about Immortal Hulk is it's really reflective of having a perspective and doing something unique with a character that nobody's really done it. Like he is a monster, like turning it into a horror book is a super fascinating angle for it.
But it feels like a culmination of different versions of the Hulk too, because like his Hulk speaks in complete sentences.
Yeah.
Like there is clearly an intellect there, but there's also like a mania, a sinister element. There's just a lot going on there, and I'm really excited to just go on that journey. And I hope it sells okay. I really wanted to go for more than 12 issues because you know what? Marvel does not like to let Al Ewing have more than 12 issues on a book.
You're so protective of your boy.
Oh, he's so good. I mean, I just wrote a review last week it was on You Are Deadpool, which was so good. It was ridiculously good. First off, every issue took like an hour to read. It's like the most bang for your buck you can get in a superhero comic. But it was just so fun. The deep cuts, like Ewing knows continuity, but like I feel like he's more like imaginative than a lot of other like continuity worshippers. Like he's gonna find like a really interesting angle to take all these years and years and years of history and turn it into something that feels new while having that foundation. Like I'm a person that like Claremont X-Men comics or whatever are really formative for me as well. And like I didn't necessarily have to know everything about those characters, but you felt that there was a history there when you jumped into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it totally does.
I also read like a lot of like late 90s X-Men comics, which are a total mess. But like I just loved how there was so much that had happened in the past, and I didn't really need to know everything about it. I could just enjoy it month after month.
It was just like texture. It was like the world. And like that was, I don't know. I that's like that's one of the things that I have a complaint about Marvel about largely, especially in recent years, is like when I say that like their universe doesn't feel cohesive, it's those things that I kind of miss. It's like it's not that they try so hard to try to explain it to everybody like what exactly is going on that they like forget to assume that like sometimes people just want to enjoy the story and like the world can be like digested in a way that you would digest anything. And like that's while those X-Men books were a mess, they actually did a very good job of just what you were saying. Like I do want one other book I want to highlight is I actually really like Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman's Venom, which was not a book that I thought. I mean, I don't really care about Venom to be honest, but I actually really enjoyed it, and I felt like Donny had a very unique perspective on the character, and like the idea of turning it into like a bigger thing and also kind of going a horror angle with it made a lot of sense for that character too. But,
yeah, I mean, I don't care about Venom, but I care about Donnie. So like he's really, really, really good, and his Thanos run is fantastic. It is so good. 6 issues. Read them when you get the chance.
I will. I actually, it was funny. I broke my rule of wanting to do the Marvel Unlimited thing, but I went back and apparently like his first issue is so popular that like all back issues are like sold out basically. Apparently it's like a huge speculator book. Weirdly.
Yeah, well, because it's also I think he had just started Doctor Strange too, but like Marvel's like they're putting a lot of chips on him. They are giving him a lot of power to kind of because they need an architect or whatever. Like they need more of those people that are going to have big plans. Because who are the people at Marvel right now that are kind of structuring everything? Jason Aaron.
Yep. That's
I
about
would
it.
say Al Ewing, but I don't feel like he has a role in the larger universe. I don't feel like they give him that kind of power. Mark Waid, I would say, still
I
has.
don't really think so. I think it's just, I think the power, there's a paradigm shift, and I think it's editorial. Like, I don't really think you can look at anybody as like a real driver. Even Jason Aaron, like the legacy stuff, like you read that legacy one shot, and I enjoyed the legacy one shot, but how much of that paid off like within the first like 4 months of that issue or that coming out? Like Wolverine is not coming back until September.
Yeah, and the payoff is happening right now in Avengers 8 months later.
Right, exactly. And like, God, I still can't believe Wolverine's gonna have hot claws. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Ugh. Anyways, sorry, off subject. That was one question I was gonna ask you. What? Who? Who would write an event right now if there was an event?
Donnie.
I mean, I think so, right?
I think I think it would be like another year, and he'll be doing some sort of an event. Probably Venom centric, but they do like a Venom event every 6 months or something.
I think
like,
they are currently doing one, aren't they?
Venomized or whatever. Who cares? God, I'm so cynical. No, who? I mean,
I would like to. I would like to see a Zdarsky one, to be honest. He like 2-in-1 is really good. I think that's a really good book.
I would love to see a G. Willow Wilson event.
Yeah,
because Ms. Marvel is their like one of their most consistent, like exciting books. I think that like Ms. Marvel's been going for 50 issues, and it has. I think it's really only had some rough spots right around Civil War II, which was not their fault.
it was
like,
an area of effect on everybody.
Yeah, it was like let's spend 8 months making people not like Marvel comics. That's what it felt like.
I don't think Captain Marvel has recovered yet.
No way. Oh my God. Like, well, and that's what I imagine that the next Marvel event will have Captain Marvel in a really prominent role.
Right.
I am kind of intrigued by this Life of Captain Marvel book. We'll see. I do think, like, I did not like Margaret Stoll's Captain Marvel run at all.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of her giving Carol like a new origin and like being able to tell a story without all of these without Civil War II character assassination that she has to deal with, like that's going to be a plus. But like not having to deal with Alpha Flight, having to deal with all this other bullshit, like just being able to tell a 5-issue miniseries, Carlos Pacheco on art. I think Marguerite Sauvage is doing some issues of that, or like part of an issue of that.
The second issue, I think.
Yeah, so like she should be the artist for Captain Marvel ongoing whenever that happens.
This doesn't really help the comic itself, but those Totino Tedesco covers are unbelievable.
Oh, so good. I mean, it helps. It does help the comic. Like the cover, it will help. It will sell it.
Yeah.
At least it will grab people's attention and make them want to pick it up and look through it. But no, I'm hoping that she learned a little bit about how to write for comics in the past year and a half, because she definitely had that novelist, super heavy, too much dialogue, too much narration. The art didn't breathe at all. It was all just kind of cramped in the page. So yeah,
I
hope that.
I wonder why like Rainbow Rowell has done so much better with that. Like, I wonder if it's a Rainbow thing, or if like part of it's Will Moss is just so damn good at doing his job, or I don't know what it is. Like, it seems like there is a huge split between like when novelists kind of jump in, or prose writers jump in to do Marvel comics.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed Rainbow, and she just has, I mean, first off, she has like a really, really deep personal connection with those characters, like a emotional relationship with them that I don't necessarily think that like Stoll has with Captain Marvel. I don't think she like grew up reading Captain Marvel books, but I could be completely wrong. But like Rainbow trusts her artist, and she works very, very, there's a strong collaborative aspect of that book. They're working it's a very tight knit creative team, and that's what the best comics have.
Yeah.
I mean, Squirrel Girl, like that book was Ryan and Erica and Rico, just like you could just feel that teamwork. And a book like Aaron and Dodderman and Wilson on Thor, like when you have that really awesome creative team where there is a really rich give and take between everybody on the team, that just elevates the work so much.
Mm-hmm. And they actually have time to like figure things out together and find out what's the best answer for each other. And like that's what I think. It seemed like Rainbow, it was particularly good because I had Chris on the podcast and he was talking about how like the first script was written, and then after that it was kind of like she gave him like lots of leeway to just figure things out, and then she adapted from there, which I think is what you need. Like that you have to be willing to. I mean, maybe prose writers have a tendency of being a little bit more inflexible when they're initially scripting, but once they figure it out, that like they have another collaborator to figure things out, maybe that changes it. I don't know, but it seemed like she figured that out.
I think that first issue of the new Runaways run, I know some people kind of complained that like nothing happened in it.
Oh, that was wonderful.
But I thought it was so smart of just taking this one moment and like filling 20 pages with that emotion, which sets the tone so well and makes it clear that this is a book about the characters. Not necessarily, it's not going to be about the Runaways and the Avengers. It's not going to be about time travel. Well, it actually is kind of about time travel, but like, it's not going to be about these big overarching plot points. It's going to be about these character dynamics, how they relate to each other in the moment. And I really dig that book. It's really, really good. I hope that I don't know if it's going to last past 18, but at this point, I know they're going till at least 18. We'll see how the trade sales went. I really wish that they did like first, second dimensions for those books.
Yes.
If they weren't necessarily going to be digests, which they should be, but if they're not, like I wish that they did a more bookstore friendly dimension. But it was cool that they had like a Barnes and Noble exclusive version.
That was a nice cover too.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I want them to sell that book. Like, I remember that like the rollout for that book, the teasers were like leagues and leagues better than Marvel publicity normally is. Mm-hmm. They had each of those teasers that kind of gave you an idea who each of the characters were. You had a full character shot, like instead of just, a cover with a tagline slapped on there, right, and a date.
Well, and like that book's unique though because it's like the cast is so. The book is so defined by its cast, and like in a way that like other ones aren't. I do want to say I really love the fact that like Victor just wants to be a head now. Like that's just it's so like great. It's great. Okay, so I have a listener question. I actually had 3 questions from James Kaplan, and the problem was we already actually addressed 2 of them. One was about Doomsday Clock. The other one was about Jason Aaron's Avengers. The third one, though, what upcoming Marvel series are you most excited about? For him, it's Coates and you on Captain America. What's your pick?
I feel like I need to go and look and see what are the upcoming Marvel books.
I can just say mine really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one, I know this would bring up the question of price, but I am excited for Fantastic Four to come back, if only because it is the Fantastic Four. Also, Dan Slott did a very good thing run, and Sarah Pichelli is fantastic. And there's a morbid curiosity, I must admit, in X Classified, because I'm a horrible, horrible monster. I honestly think it's going to be an event that like kicks to them like kind of relaunching the X line with Jordan White's vision in there, but we'll see.
You are a monster.
I know. Every retailer like just formed an effigy of me to burn and kill me.
No, I mean I'm super excited for Fantastic Four. Honestly, like I fell off of Slott's Spider-Man quite a while ago. It was just too long, and it kind of sucks because I love Stuart Immonen, but I just like wasn't really feeling it. And at a certain point, so many issues built up that it became kind of like intimidating to jump into it.
Yeah.
But no, I am looking forward to it. I similarly really love that Thing run. That was really great. Pichelli is a force. She is just so good. But you know what I'm really excited for? I'm excited for Infinity Wars. Just kidding. That's a
Oh.
lie. No, I'm gonna split between West Coast Avengers,
Yeah.
which I loved. Kelly Thompson's Hawkeye, the late great Hawkeye, gone too soon, gone way too soon. That book was just so good. That could have lasted for. I wanted at least 24 issues of that, but at least we're gonna get West Coast Avengers, which has Gwenpool, who I am a total Gwenpool super fan. I was very hesitant, and I saw a lot of people I trusted on Twitter being like, Gwenpool's awesome, read this book. It is really, really good. And I did, and it was awesome. Like, you
It
don't
seems
necessarily...
insane.
Yeah, you don't have to read all of it. I really think it does. It kind of goes to like the next level at issue 13, like that second year. And the final issue of Gwenpool is one of the best final issues I've ever read.
Interesting.
It's actually kind of you know how much we love Future Foundation number 23.
Oh yeah.
It actually has a bit of a Future Foundation 23 vibe, where it's kind of about like the power of these stories and the longevity of these characters, and how, like, even though Gwenpool's book is canceled, like, she is still, like, she doesn't die. She exists because people continue to read her book. It's in libraries, it's in bookstores,
Wow.
like, it's in schools. Yeah,
That sounds amazing.
It was really fascinating. And Gurihiro is so good. Like, they are such an amazing art team, and they have such a charming style. So I highly recommend that. And then I am also looking forward to this new X-23 book, which, like, Mariko Tamaki is kind of, I mean, I think she's way more hit than miss. I didn't really care for her Hulk run at all. But again, she's dealing with, like, Civil War 2 stink. So, like,
Right.
she just, like, couldn't brush that off. And she had, like, a really shitty status quo to deal with. But, like, Tom Taylor did such a good job creating this just really rich character for Laura and Gabby. I don't know if you've read All New Wolverine, but
I'm very aware of Honey Badger.
Yes, Honey Badger, man, she's so great. And then, so I'm looking forward to seeing what Mariko does with that dynamic. Her Supergirl being super is fantastic. So I'm hoping that she kind of taps into that. But I'm most excited about Juan Cabal, who's the artist on that. And he did that Elektra series like a year and a half ago. But he did a arc of All New Wolverine where he's kind of like it's like Jamie McKelvey meets John Cassaday. He's really, really good. Like, I think that he's going to be, like, he could be a superstar for sure. And the preview art for this new series looks really, really fun. I am bummed about going back to the X-23 name, but because it's just kind of a dumb name.
Right.
But, you know, like, we all knew she wasn't going to be Wolverine forever. Even though, if Hawkeye can have two people, why can't Wolverine?
Yeah, I think people would figure it out. One's a woman, one's a man. They got it sorted. I do want to say West Coast Avengers. I actually think Stefano Caselli is also underrated. I think he's a good artist, and I like to see him on something. I'll be interested to see how he does with, like, kind of comedic characters, because my favorite stuff with him is more like the Secret Warriors vein, which is definitely not comedic. But I don't know. We'll see. All right, so I want to close with, like, 3 just, like, larger feel questions. We're going to put the 2 up against one another. Of the 2 publishers, Marvel and DC, who do you feel has more positive momentum right now? Or do you think either of them even does?
I think DC has more positive momentum, for me at least. I think
I would agree with that. Well, I mean,
I do think DC has more positive for me. The imprint stuff is very encouraging to me. I really liked their big event, which is so rare. Like, the events are just, like, killers for me, and I thought DC Metal or Dark Knight's Metal was really, really fun and just totally balls to the wall. If that's what their line is going to be going forward, I'm very excited for that. Sure, New Age of Heroes was a bust, but Yeah, whatever, it happens. And like, this is a Jonathan Hickman thing where he's like, people don't create new IP for Marvel and DC.
Right.
Like, you don't give them your best ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You don't own it. Like, you work with those characters, you get yourself that reputation, that fan base, then you go to Image. You go to Image. I was gonna say you go to Boom, but you probably go to Image.
Right.
And you put out your really, really good stuff over there and make all that money for yourself. Sell, option it, get some of that Hollywood money for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you on DC having the more better momentum right now, just because I feel like the imprints, the risk taking, like I think that the New Justice stuff is really connecting. I think it just seems like they're doing better in shops too. I do think Fresh Start is actually a lot more promising than I initially thought possible, but I think the books are largely good. That's the next question. Of the two publishers, who do you think is actually making better comics right now, though? Like, I kind of feel like that's Marvel.
I don't know. I really do feel like they're kind of split here.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is, everybody's kind of like, there's some books that are really good sometimes, and there's a lot of hit or miss stuff. Like, that's how I feel about like King's Batman.
Right.
When it hits really hard, and when it misses, it's like really bad, like
right.
embarrassingly bad. I thought the Booster Gold arc was like really, really bad.
that was kind of the general gist I got from people, is that it was not the best Booster Gold.
This is bad. This
Yeah.
is not good at all. I was also like not really. I don't like when King gets really serious. Like, I think that he does his best work when he lets himself have a little bit of a sense of humor.
Right.
But yeah, who has the better books right now? I mean, Marvel has Runaways, and they're still publishing it, so I guess Marvel wins this one.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think Marvel has like a lot of interesting depth. Like, we didn't talk about Exiles, but Exiles is a very charming book.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's. I think it's the unseen structure with it, like where they always have the unseen in it, is like I just want that removed from the comic and just have fun stuff where Valkyrie and Wolvie hang out. And then, like, obviously, like, the Fresh Start stuff's great. Squirrel Girl is good forever. I really enjoyed Derek Charm's first issue. And Marvel
Me
2
too.
I don't know. I just think there's a lot of depth there. Of course, I also think that, like, it's funny. I still really like Captain America, but it's only like the Leo Romero bits. It's like all the other parts, I'm just like, why is this here? But, all right. So last question. If you had to choose one as an absolute favorite superhero comic right now, if you were going to recommend something to somebody, what would you go with?
I mean, if I had to recommend just one for like a new person to try out right now, it would probably be that first issue of Black Panther. Because the Black Panther momentum is so strong right now. Like, I do not think Marvel is taking full advantage of just how much of a pop culture phenomenon Black Panther is.
Right.
And I know some people are like, you don't want to flood the market with Black Panther books or whatever. I'm like, flood it. Like, make it rain Black Panther books and find something that is going to get people excited. Like, because like, that movie was gigantic. That character, everybody knows who that character is now. And that is a very accessible first issue that is really exciting. It feels like like you were saying, it feels like the start of like a miniseries. It felt like, for me, the start of like a very good movie sequel.
Sure.
Where you have this time that has passed. You have this idea of where that character's coming from, but they're in a completely new situation. These characters from the movie who are in this completely different scenario. So, yeah, I think I would honestly go with that Black Panther issue, just because it also had a lot of those like superhero thrills. Otherwise, I would probably also maybe go with that Immortal Hulk, which was just a very nice, tight single issue story. And I think it was Daryl Io who kind of went on a Twitter I don't want to say rant, because it was nicer than a rant, but it was just going on Twitter talking about those first issues of Matt Fraction, David Aja's Hawkeye, and how there were no cliffhangers. You just got a self-contained story every issue that was incredible and ended with like just a mission statement every issue. And that's kind of what that first issue of Immortal Hulk felt like for me. And I hope that they hold on to that just general structure where every issue is kind of like this done in one horror story with the Hulk encountering different people and just messing up bad guys.
I think I would go with Immortal Hulk as well. Well, as well as in Black Panther's up there too, but Immortal Hulk to me feels like the Hulk, but it feels like a just a totally new take that fits within the realm of what we understand about the Hulk. And then like Black Panther, I really, really love that first issue, but to a degree, like I said, it just kind of feels like a maxi series that is out of continuity to me, which is a great thing, but at the same time isn't necessarily like as straight a superhero book. Otherwise, I'd probably go with like Runaways would be up there, and also I really love Marvel 2-in-1 just for a good throwback, especially because you got Jim Chung on there, and well, you have had him on there, and Valeria Sheedy as well. But
well, what about DC? Like, would you recommend that first issue of Justice League to a non like that? I like that issue, but I if I gave that to a person that's like a not really a superhero reader, I feel like they would have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, it like that's the interesting thing about Snyder's stuff to a degree, and like just that Justice League issue in particular is like it felt so steeped in like everything superheroes and everything DC superheroes that it would. I appreciated there was cool things like the mental, like I forgot what he phrased it as, but like the boardroom, like the mental boardroom that he brought in where everybody was sitting there. Like I thought that was a really cool touch. And I thought that like the beginning with like having Commandy and particularly Android Hourman, because I'm a super fan of Android Hourman, like in there, like there's all these little things that you kind of appreciate as like a longtime comic fan and a longtime DC fan. But I don't know if they're as welcoming as like that first Black Panther issue or that first Immortal Hulk issue. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would go with that.
And I guess like that does end up making Fresh Start feel like it's something that's actually a fresh start.
Right.
Like, I don't think Avengers was that in any way. Like, it's not Fresh Start. It's a legacy book. Like, this should have been the Avengers book that happened immediately after Marvel Legacy happened. Right. But they had to do No Surrender or whatever. They said, let's wrap up all their 5 Avengers books. So, like, now, and it, like I was mentioning the Bruce Jones Hulk, it does kind of feel like we are getting takes that have that classic Jameis and Quesada vibe where you're getting your Grant Morrison New X-Men, you're getting your Milligan and All Red X-Force. These books that, like, in one issue completely change the game and give you something that really feels different, that is expanding but not going backwards in any way.
I gotta say, like, I didn't love it, but I appreciate what it tried to do, and it didn't feel like Mark Waid, but I actually thought Doctor Strange #1 was really interesting.
Agree. And
Jesus Saiz is incredible.
Jesus Saiz has just like leveled up so much since going to Marvel.
Was he painting himself? I don't even know what that was.
Like, it's I think digital painting, but he's coloring himself, and it looks awesome. He did that. He started doing that during his, in my opinion, extremely underrated Swamp Thing run with Charles Soule. Like, I really, really liked that Charles Soule run. Yeah. Which, speaking of, where's my She-Hulk book? Like, She-Hulk is back as She-Hulk. I guess, you know what, we should be happy that we got those 12 issues. Like, I think that may be a book that it had its perfect length of 12 issues. But, man.
I would have kept reading it. And
I would have kept reading it. With Javier Pulido?
Where is Pulido right now? Like, get that man a job. Seriously. Like, I love Javier Pulido. I don't know. I have no idea what he's doing right now. But, like, that's... I don't know. But I do want to, like, going back to what you were saying, it's like, I honestly... Like, I feel like a lot of the Fresh Start books so far, like, it's so hard to say this off of one issue, but I'm just going to say that, like, I could see, like, you can see the seeds of these ideas being, like, the type of classic type stories that you want out of these characters that are still fresh, that are still something different. And, like, I think that's pretty impressive. Like I think like the fresh start is going pretty well so far. We'll see what happens later on, but it's a good start.
Good start. That's what they should have called it. Good start.
Good start, guys. Good start. All right, Oliver, that's it. Thank you for doing a superhero State of the Union. Let's go read some comics, or you write about Legion. I'll talk to you later, man. Thanks for coming on.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, David.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with comics critic Oliver Sava. You can find him on Twitter at Oliver Sava, on his website at oliversava.com, and in his articles at the AV Club. If you're a fan of the show, check it out on Patreon. If you back it on there, you not only support the show, but you get early access to each week's podcast, access to exclusive written and audio content, and more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Stitcher, and give the show a rating or review while you're at it. You can find the show on social media as well. Like the show on Facebook at /sketched, that's SKTCHD, follow on Twitter at @sketchcomic, or follow me at @slicefriedgold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Nick Paletto, Mike DiArgenio, Dylan Campbell, Owen McCready, Brendan Fletcher, Michael Garland, Nick, Gary Maloney, Jonathan Nilsson, Matthew Groom, David, Jason Massey, Mike Gillis, Adam Bogert, Xavier Files, Maria Schweitzer, Matthew Taylor, Tyler Turner, Dan Guarino, Dan Lee, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Evan Blazer, Brian McRae, Ira James Udaskin, Henning Allers, Modern Magic Stories, Nick Hall, Bruno Batista, Abraham Reisman, Bobby Angus, Bjorn Basin, Darren Neely, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Michael Perlman, Phil Nall, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Chang, Benjamin Shipper, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Maxwell Schmidt, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Lou Avino, Nicholas Kesslick, Greg Rucka, Ryan Mail, Adam Highfield, Nicholas Gardner, Andrew Corrigan, Fiona Staples, Chris Morris, Chris O'Halloran, Mark Abbott, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim DiMonacos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission in Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. Quick thanks to the band Wolfpack, whose excellent track outro from the album Volmilch opens and closes the show now. Give them a listen as they're totally rad. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.